the godly Splitgate pistol gameplay guide that you absolutely need. Ladies and gents, my name is Xander, aka Diaside, and in this video it's all about the pistol and Splitgate. And I'm sure that some of you are wondering, okay, well, what exactly does this entail? Marvelous question, Diaslayers, as it's going to include everything from the beta and post-beta, aka Season 0, much more specifically, things like damage output, body damage output, critical damage output, how many frames are in between each bullet, ranges, optimal TTKs at those ranges, and even some things on how many players that you can actually down in one magazine, should you melee, should you not, as well as the reload mechanics that you should use to make it so that it's the most effective thing possible. In the competitive rank playlists, you need as much of an advantage as you can get, and that's what this video is going to give you. So without any further ado, the only thing left to do is just to simply sit back, relax, eviscerate that like button for the YouTube algorithm, grab that Mountain Dew, and let's jump right into the video. Before we get into how the weapon performs in Season 0, the very first thing that I want to discuss is rather how it performed in the beta. And so the pistol, whether you realize it or not, was actually doing 25 for a crit and 17 for a body. This thing gave it amazing TTKs. I can't remember exactly what it is off the top of my head, but it was around 0.5 seconds for an optimal TTK, which is just unbelievable. But not just that, it also was simply a semi-auto weapon, and it also had 8 frames in between bullets. Understanding that, now we get into the versatility things this thing's doing currently in Season 0. The first thing that I gotta mention is that it is now a full auto weapon. Yes, Diaslayers, you heard me right, I said that the pistol is a full auto weapon, and that's just spectacular. But not just this weapon got a slight decrease in its overall damage output from 17 for a crit and now 15 for a body. If you were to look at solely body shots and body shots alone, this thing's going to take 7 body shots and that's then going to associate to a 0.8 second body shot TTK. On the flip side of this though, if you were to get only critical headshots, it's then going to require 6 bullets, and that's then going to associate to a 0.67 optimal TTK. 2/3 of a second to down somebody? Not too shabby if I would say so myself. Just that we're all on the exact same page, I know I said a lot of data in a very short amount of time, so here's all the information right there on screen. As you analyze this, I want to say 2 things. Number 1, I do all my TTK calculations in a frame-by-frame analysis, meaning that I literally count how many frames are in between bullets, and then how many frames it cumulatively takes to actually down a player. The other thing that I want you to note is a new stat that I've made, which is frames per bullet miss. As you see from right there, that's then 8 frames, which correlates to 0.13 seconds. Essentially what that means is that if you happen to miss even 1 bullet, your TTK is then going to go up by 0.13 seconds. And how I got that is by calculating that in between each bullet, 7 frames pass. But don't forget that the bullet being fired also takes a little bit of a frame, aka 1 frame, and that then makes 8 frames in total if you happen to miss 1 single bullet on a player. Now some of you might be saying, okay, well this is fantastic information, no, it's now I'm going to be able to annihilate, decimate, and eradicate every single player in my path, but at what given range? Is that 5 meters, 10 meters, 15 meters, etc, etc? And the best part is that we don't have to guess this because when we go into the weapon range, we can test all this ourselves. As you guys can see from right here, I'm doing everything according to the dummies. Unfortunately, there is no range value associated with them, but we can definitely get a sense of the overall range output and the damage fall-off associated with each, based upon the damage values that you're seeing as well as the dummies that are being shown. For the first and second dummy, we're still having the exact same optimal values for 17 for a crit and 15 for a body that you guys already just saw previously. However, as soon as you get to dummy 3, then you happen to have 15 per crit and 14 per body showing some damage fall-off. As far as dummies 4 through 7 go, you're then going to get the exact same damage fall-off for values of 13 for a crit and 11 for a body. This then means that even at cross-map distances, this thing can still actually land bullets at those players. But also keep in mind that it may not be ideal to do this because you're going to have some colossal TTK factors. To really get a sense of what I mean, I'm going to put all these stats right there on screen. And just so we're all on the same page, the first 2 dummy stats on the left that you guys already previously saw for the optimal TTKs is on the left. But as far as the center goes, that's dummy 3, and as far as the right goes, that's dummies 4 through 7. If you're up for it, then by all means, take a screenshot of this. But the main takeaways that I want you to remember is the optimal TTK values. And then going from left to right, you're then going to have 0.67, 0.8, and 0.93 associated with those, but then also go down to the body shot values, as here they're also going to increase from left to right at 0.8, 0.93, and 1.2 seconds associated with that. Ultimately, what I really want you to retain from this info is that in the close range distances as well as the mid-range distances, the pistol is still very, very viable. But as soon as you go outside that to the crossfire distances, it becomes despicable and detestable and absolutely atrocious in so many ways that I can't even begin to describe to you, as to never ever use it in those scenarios. Even so, does that mean that it can't be used? No, as it certainly can, but you might have some better choices like the carbon, for example, and you then get my point. Now, the other thing that you gotta realize about the pistol is realize some tips on how to use this thing, because really, you only have about 12 bullets in the magazine, and that essentially means that you can only get 2 players down in one magazine, even if you have to land all critical headshots. So rather instead, how are you using this pistol? Most likely, you're using it in a hyper-aggressive format, and you're gonna be up and close and personal in somebody's face. That then means that what you can do is maybe put in, say, 3 or 4 bullets, and then go ahead and melee them, and by the time that's done, you're going to down them in just those 5 bullets with the melee. The same thing can also be done not just once, but twice, without ever having to reload. That's a huge characteristic that you're going to have to play with, especially in these competitive ranked game modes like 2v2 or 3v3 takedown, and so on and so forth. Now, the other thing that I want to point out here is actually the reload speeds, and rather the reload mechanics that you can use based upon how many bullets you actually have in the magazine when you do so. As you can see from right here, I'm firing all the bullets in the one magazine and then reloading 3 times. This is then a very long process to actually reload, and it's absolutely atrocious. I don't really want you to do this, so rather instead, what you're going to see here in a second is that when you have 1 bullet or at least 1 bullet left in the magazine, you then are able to have a colossally faster reload speed. This is absolutely essential for you to use, or rather take note of, because once again, when you're playing in those hyper-aggressive formats where every split second makes a difference, this one reload mechanic can make all the difference in the world in getting that double play or just a cleanup and send enemy players to the afterlife just like Exodia, obliterating them to the Shadow Realm. Now, the very last tip that I have for you, or rather it's actually 2 in 1. Part A is to never ever aim with a weapon. Actually, I can't remember if you can really aim with a weapon to begin with, but if you can, don't. Always hipfire with the weapon using the hipfire reticle. The reason why that's important is because part B is that you're going to land a lot more of your shots with this weapon as long as you're doing that, looking at the hipfire reticle and never at the actual target. The human eye is naturally drawn to objects that are moving, and so if you take a stationary object, in this case the hipfire reticle, your eye is naturally going to draw that inanimate object to what's moving, in this case the player, and you're going to land a ton more of your shots. Who knows? You might even send Team Rocket blasting off again, and who doesn't want to do that? You do, I do, we all do. So by all means, hip fire with the weapon, never aim, and always look at the static reticle to make sure that you land a ton more of your shots. And having said all this fluff chemistry shenanigans, you now firmly understand all the differences of how this weapon performed in the beta to currently how it performs in Season 0, as well as some other things on not just how to use the weapon, but also the effective ranges in which it's going to be used the best. Remember, this thing can now be fired in full auto, and so it's going to make a tremendous amount of difference, almost like having on the one ring being able to become invisible. But hey, you gotta let me know if you make it to Mount Doom, because I certainly hope that you do, and of course, get to that master rank as well. Let me know what you guys think about all this stuff down in the comment section below. Did it help? Did it not? Do you want to see something different? Or do you want to see some more information on top of this? And no matter what you guys say, you always know that I'm going to respect your opinions, and that is something that I can guarantee. That's pretty much all I've got for you as of right now, Diaslayers. And so as always, GG TNT.